You're all set to go, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you. Hello all, I'm going to wait a few minutes, see if we have any more attendees. I want to welcome those of you that have already joined. So let's give it a couple minutes and see who else might circle around to join us. Okay, my name is Sheryl Crowder, and I am a psychotherapist and an author from the San Francisco Bay Area. Part of my what happens now and what happens next is that I myself am a cancer survivor. And what I discovered post-treatment is that there seemed to be a lack of services, a lack of things that were geared towards people who had finished treatment for cancer or people who were living with cancer. I noticed in groups or in meetings, conversations, that people who have survived cancer or living with it had a real need to tell their stories. Stories are so important because we remember stories. Stories are personal. They come from our heart. And we'll remember them far more than we're going to remember facts and figures, things that are offered to us in that way. So what grew out of what next for me was a book that I wrote called Surviving the Storm, a workbook for telling your cancer story. Today, I'm going to be giving some information, and please forgive me for when I look over at notes. It's just the nature of it in this kind of virtual group. I am going to, though, leave some spaces throughout our time together where you can go to the question answer, ask a question, send a thought, make a comment, because I'd like to have this be as conversational as possible and for you all to have a chance to perhaps tell a piece of your own story. I apologize in advance if we don't get to everyone's questions or comments or thoughts, but I would like to encourage you and invite you that if you have something you'd like to say that you didn't feel got heard, please email me and I'll be glad to respond back to you. So I also want to say that I am a very experiential personal teacher, so I won't be seeing you. You won't be seeing each other, which in a way gives you a certain freedom to say what you need to say without worrying about being seen. It gives you some anonymity. My preference is to be able to see people. However, I'm just going to imagine us together in a room, which I really hope will happen sooner than later. All right, thank you, and here we go. Make no mistake, this will be an exercise in staying vertical. Yes, there'll be a view, later a wide swath of open sky. But in the meantime, tree and stone. If you're lucky, a hawk will coast overhead, scanning the forest floor. If you're lucky, a set of wildflowers will keep you cheerful. Mostly, though, a steady sweat, your heart fluttering indelicately, a steady sweat, a solid ache perforating your calves. This is called work. What you will come to know, eventually and simply, as movement, as all the evidence you need to make your way. Forget where you were. That story is no longer true. Level your gaze to the trail, and even the dark won't stop you. That poem is by Maya Stein, and it's called How to Climb a Mountain. Finishing treatment for cancer is a bit like falling off a mountain after your climbing rope has been cut. Well-meaning folks are cheering wildly, encouraging the celebration of such a monumental event. Some who have been there for the days, weeks, and months of the ordeal are frankly relieved that it's over and life can, in quotes, return to normal. As you plummet to what some call returning to normal or the new normal, you realize that you're free falling into some primal place of uncertainty with really little or no sense of where you are. You look up at the top of the cliff, see your doctors, your nurses, all the caregivers waving kindly, if not a little bit tiredly, as they turn from you to greet the next newly diagnosed patient. You're on your own. You hope you land in a safe spot. You might ask, hey, where's my parachute? Now, these are the questions that swirl in the mind and the heart of the survivor even before that last treatment. They begin to form without the knowledge of what indeed is next or what will happen now. You're told about follow-ups, often given some advice about what to eat, told to exercise. But most of this is common sense and applies to anyone attempting what the latest definition of a healthy lifestyle is. However, while maintaining a healthy weight, exercising, not drinking too much alcohol, have proven important, research is still inconclusive about the effects of diet on cancer. There's a lot of theories on the latest product or program. They come and go. They prey on us in our most frightened and desperate moments. So beware of magic potions promising life everlasting. Turning toward ourselves, reflecting on what now and what to do next, exploring what is present. This may feel and fill the emptiness and soothe your terrors. It's really not so much something to do, however, as it is a pathway to discover who you are now, that you have survived treatment for cancer, or you're someone who's living with cancer. Deciding what next may be as simple as deciding what you're going to have for breakfast. It can also be as complex as you explore what you really want to do with whatever time that you have left. Asking now may be an invitation to the awareness of who you are as you stand at this important crossroads of your life. As there's little, if any, preparation for the emotional leg of survivorship, it can be really confusing to know where to turn. Leaning on others who can relate to your experience can be very helpful during this time of transition. Still tender from the shock of cancer, we stumble out in the world outside the hospital, the clinic, the treatment room, the doctor's office, shaken. We're unsure of ourselves. We're unsure about our lives. What happens now can be answered concretely by follow-up appointments, continued surveillance, tests, and so on. That's the short answer. But life has abruptly changed as the visits to the doctors taper off and another day arrives. The world has gone on without us while we were in surgery, while we were in infusion rooms, while we received radiation, and it will continue on with or without us. How we want to continue, I see as a profoundly personal search. But it's really difficult to begin to ponder these questions when it's still somewhat hard to believe that we will carry on at all. Working with these fears and these beliefs about what's possible may be the first part of what happens now. What happens now can be broken down into small sections, starting with day-to-day concerns and activities. For instance, how do you want to use the time that you have now that you've been freed up from all those appointments and treatments? You may want to take a walk, read a book, you may want to nap, you may want to paint, write in your journal, you may want to do absolutely nothing. Start with what is accessible and doable. Don't push yourself or shove yourself to be in a place where you really don't want to be or you don't feel that you're ready to be. Give yourself room to breathe. What happens next springs out of what happens now. This involves introspection and reflection, not only about what has just occurred, but what has occurred in your life prior to diagnosis and treatment. While there are many, many possible levels of inquiry, from simple day-to-day changes, you can take your exploration all the way to a level of mindfulness that has depth and is life-changing. Just as your cancer has likely changed you forever. Next slide, please. Next slide. Short-term intentions cover a period of time from the present moment to approximately 18 months. They help you focus on your life. These need to be simple, doable. These are things that help you find ways to just ease back into your life again. Short-term intentions can take the pressure off of thinking that you need to know what you want and need, what you want to do long-term before you even take stock of where you are now in the present moment. Slow down. Release the pressure of moving beyond where you are now in your life. This is likely still a time for recovery, rejuvenation, and healing. Initially, short-term intentions may look like reading a book, taking a bath, having a cup of tea, taking a walk, watching a movie. Once again, maybe just doing nothing, allowing that also to be fine. They aren't difficult, and they often don't require any planning. After this phase, you may then move on to short-term intentions that go forward from 12 to 18 months. This is where you feel stronger, you feel more able to focus. These intentions may involve work, relationships, creative projects, and things that may indeed take some planning. However, remember that these intentions aren't forever. They're not written in stone. They're flexible, and that way, again, they're doable. The questions that are showing up now can help us get started on an exploration. Remember that you're just beginning your inner search. So allow yourself to feel confused, allow the questions to arise, and try not, pardon me, try not to close down too soon on the answers. There may be one or two of these questions that stands out for you. So I'd like us to spend a few moments with these questions and then begin our first opening for a couple minutes of some thoughts, questions, or comments, or any kind of small story you might like to tell about yourself. So let's look over these questions. How would you say your life has changed after completion of treatment for cancer? How would you say it's changed if you're someone who's living with cancer? Are you hopeful? What do you hope for in your life? What makes you feel worried or scared? What makes you feel happy and relaxed? Here's the big question. How do you feel changed by your experience of cancer? Okay, again, let's take a couple moments, and if people want to chime in, I'd love to have some dialogue and see. Anybody have any thoughts or questions? Okay. Well, certainly if any questions or comments or thoughts come up about these questions throughout our time together, feel free to, again, put that in the Q&A box. And although I won't be able to hear you ask your questions, I will respond to you vocally. Okay. Next slide, please. Long-term intentions require self-inquiry into what you value and what is important to you in the bigger picture of your life. A really good question to ask yourself is, what matters to me? Or what matters to me is. Sitting with this question, watching what emerges, can lead you to a place of self-discovery that allows you to thoughtfully choose your path based on who you discover you are now. Long-term intentions may look like work, career interests, creative pursuits, relationships, and intimacy with others as well as with yourself. This search is not necessarily motivated by external circumstances or materialistic pursuits, yet both of these areas may be included. It's important to value the realistic aspects of long-term intentions, but not get caught on how productive or practical they should be. So as to allow yourself the voice of your innermost wants and dreams, to allow that to be heard and to give yourself space. In essence, not to settle for less than what you truly believe is possible for yourself. Both inner and outer personal worlds are part of this exploration. So take time and allow yourself to be with your thoughts and feelings without the need to come up with goals and plans before you are really sure of what really does matter to you. I'm going to again pause here to see if there's any thoughts or questions, comments, anything anybody wants to open up. Okay, well, again, I'm just going to keep pausing, and if anything comes up along the way, please feel free. We'll also have some time at the end, too. Next slide, please. We go through chapters or phases of survivorship. It's like the seasons, changing over time, marking a beginning or an ending of where we have landed. The seasons of survivorship, named over 30 years ago by doctor and cancer survivor Fitzhugh Mullen, and revised now almost a decade ago by Robert Miller, give us some way to understand the unknown territory that we're traveling through. The seasons are described as acute or transitional survivorship. This is the season of dealing with the beginning of cancer. This is the diagnosis, treatment, heightened, intense. It's so very busy and with a lot of structure. We know what to do at this point. We're told what the next step is. But cancer treatment interrupts our lives. The plans we made, the direction we thought we were going, it changes in an instant. A girl I know had to leave her high school classes. She had to let go of her plans for college while watching her friends move on with their plans. For her, the 7 months of chemotherapy were the most difficult of her life. And she told me that chemotherapy was more than the treatment for her cancer. It changed her inside out and left her feeling different from her peers. And she was different, and particularly as a young cancer survivor, she was quite different from her peers. And you know, 1 minute you think you're moving in a certain direction, the next, nope. And I can imagine that as you're listening, some stories, images of those first moments for you came to mind. And then treatment ends. What a time of transition. Another place that feels unreal, it feels scary, unknown. All of us face challenges after treatment ends, trying to figure out what's next for us. You know, it's the weirdest time. You should feel happy. You don't. You should feel relieved. You don't. You should feel finished. You don't. Now we head into the season of extended survivorship, a time of watching, waiting. There might be some celebration, but honestly, most of us just aren't in that much of a party mood. Extended survivorship is the time after transition from treatment, follow-up appointments, continued checkups, tests, and so on. This includes those who are living with cancer as a chronic disease, as well as those who are in remission. Remember that you are in a place of huge transition, a lot of uncertainty, and so many unknowns. I had this interaction with the doctor before I even left the infusion room for the last time. Dr. M. Well, 5 years from now, you won't remember this. Me. Oh, well, I think I'm going to remember this 5 years from now. Dr. M laughs slightly nervously. Well, 5 years probably, but 20 years from now, you're not going to remember this. Me thinking, 20 years from now, I'm going to be 76 years old. Or will I? No one handed me a map. No one installed a GPS when I left the treatment room. It was 6 a.m., barely light, because I had radiation every morning at 5:30. I needed to work as I was going through treatment. There was no fanfare. I stood there. I didn't know quite what to do. The very kind, lovely radiologist who I spent the last 5 weeks with turned away to take his next patient without even saying goodbye. So I just got in my car. I drove to a bakery. I purchased several pounds of pastry and drove home. Wow, I'm on my own. I wonder what that moment was like for you. Things aren't so clear. You don't have a treatment plan. Appointments get minimal. Expectations from others start to show up. You're back to your old self. It's over now, right? And actually, you probably just feel lost and alone and unsure of the next step in the aftermath of cancer. A cancer survivor who was diagnosed as a young woman remembers feeling happy and scared. She said to me that she was happy that it was over and scared that her cancer would come back and no one would notice in time. She worried that her routine of regular blood tests, all the monitoring, it seemed to fall off too quickly, and the answers that she received seemed too vague to her. She told me, I had cancer, and now I'm supposed to walk out of here as if I just had a routine infection or something? Am I okay or not? Can I dare to have hope? I want to tell you about another woman and how she is facing the challenge of her lifetime. She's a singer, a songwriter, working hard to make it in a very difficult business. And she was sitting right on the brink of making it. Audiences in different parts of the world were responding to her songs and her words. She was weeks away from leaving on a second tour when that sore throat that just wouldn't go away turned out to be epiglottal cancer. We sat together, me listening to her speak her story. Her at first barely able to talk or even hold up her head. Sometimes she could only gag. But her words kept coming, and I kept listening. And because we both use humor in our darkest hours, sometimes we would laugh raucously. And other times sorrow would flow like a river through that room. She told her story, and then she began moving on. She started therapy for her voice without any assurance that she would ever sing again. But she started. She sat in her studio, only for a few moments at a time, but she was beginning the next chapter of her life and another season. Gradually, not on any prescribed schedule, and don't let people tell you that there's a prescribed schedule. You begin to actually feel like you just might have a life. Not every ache and pain is cancer, and that pimple is just a pimple as you enter the season of permanent survivorship. Permanent survivorship, where you begin to gradually feel more confident that you're okay and cancer isn't the first or second thing on your mind. You may be in remission, no symptoms, no evidence of disease. You might be cancer-free, but not free of cancer because of chronic, late, and long-term physical and emotional issues. But mainly cancer is not the first thing on your mind when you wake up. It's not the last thing on your mind when you go to sleep. It doesn't wake you up in the middle of the night. A woman who struggled with believing that she would survive for any amount of time and felt it was pointless to make plans, arrived one day to tell me that she was too busy with everything she was doing in her life. She was focusing on what now and what next. She simply did not have the time to come and talk with me. Fantastic. But I have to add that at this point in my life, I am not at all convinced of permanency. Permanency is only an illusion of control, and of course, we all in our heart of hearts want to be in control. We want to attain that control, but alas. So I add the term impermanent survivorship as a way to make real the truth of living with uncertainty. Uncertainty can create fear for most of us, and living with uncertainty is one of the major concerns we face as cancer survivors. Uncertainty comes disguised as obsessive fear or shows up in searches for some kind of guarantee that illness will not return. We swear at it, we scream at it, and run away from it because we are frightened by what we don't know and what we can't control. Our thoughts and feelings around uncertainty cannot be addressed by a PowerPoint presentation, a diet, or an exercise program. Learning to live with uncertainty may be your greatest challenge, as well as your most profound opportunity in your experience with cancer. And you may be surprised at how freeing it can be when you learn to accept impermanence and begin to learn to live with uncertainty. Here's another question. When did you feel like a cancer survivor? Or do you? I see that there's some questions. I'm going to pause now for some questions and comments. So let me. Okay. Here's someone who says, one of my long-term intentions is to make sure that cancer doesn't come back, to make sure I eat healthy from now on and do everything in my power to stop reoccurrence. Absolutely. Here's someone else who's saying, after my first bout of cancer, I went back to my job because I needed to feel normal. But the second time I decided to commit myself to helping others, I started an entirely new career and I'm 51. It's really hard to begin again. No kidding, huh? I know I can only keep pushing forward because cancer taught me I can only give my time to things I care about. Okay. I try not to focus on how hard, here's another guy, I try not to focus on how hard every day can be. At pain, hot flashes, terrible sleep, worry. Some days it gets the better of me though. Well, you know what I want to say to this is that sometimes it's okay and really necessary to let ourselves sink into the darker places. What's true is that trauma will move through us. Our feelings move through us if we just allow them to be present and to have their own voices. Later on, I'm going to use some tools. We're going to talk about ways that you can work with fears and those darker moments that happen. Okay. So it looks like there might be another question here. Okay. Okay. Next slide, please. This quote by Alan Watts, I think, spoke to that comment that we just listened to about when things really don't feel great, when things feel dark and it's just a bad day. One is a great deal less anxious if one feels perfectly free to be anxious. It's by Alan Watts. I think it's really important not to fight the darker feelings, and there can be a very oppressive tyranny, the tyranny of positive thinking, as it's called, particularly aimed at cancer survivors and people living with cancer, as though you have to be positive all the time. And I don't think that's realistic. I also don't think it's compassionate to ourselves. So, yeah. So in terms of tools for relaxation, I'm now going to lead us through some breathing exercises and some ways that you can help yourself as you move through these different seasons of survivorship. So let's going to start with breathing exercises. These are very simple, they're very doable. So if you just follow along with me, we can do this together. So first, just sit quietly and breathe through your nose. Just take an inhale through your nose, breathing right into your center, right into your belly. Inhale all of that, and then breathe out through your nose. And the next time you do this, when you inhale through your nose, say to yourself or say out loud, breathing in, I breathe all my energy into myself. And then as you exhale through your nose, when you exhale, say aloud or to yourself, breathing out, I breathe out anything that doesn't belong to me, any energies I don't need or want to carry, I breathe those out to their source. Let's try that. So breathing in, I breathe all my energy fully into myself. Breathing out, I breathe out anything I don't want to carry, anything that doesn't belong to me. I breathe that out to my source. Let's try that one more time. Breathing in, I breathe my own energy in. Breathing out, I breathe out anything that doesn't belong to me back to its source. This is a very simple exercise. You can do this anytime you're sitting. You can be in a meeting. You can be sitting at the dinner table. You can do it eyes open and eyes closed, but it's very simple and in that way doable to help you relieve some of your tension. So now let's do a variation on this breathing exercise. The same exercise with a few little variations. We're gonna inhale through the nose, and then we're gonna hold that inhale for 5 seconds. And then the exhale is gonna be like a sigh. So it's like breathe in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then sigh. You can feel your shoulders drop. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sigh. Let's try that once more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the third breathing exercise I'd like to share with you is place one hand on your stomach right below your rib cage, the other hand on your chest. And again, breathe in deeply through your nose and let your belly press the hand out on your belly. So, and when you exhale, make a mouth like you're going to whistle. And let your belly press your hand right out. Okay, so breathing in, press that hand against the belly, breathing out with a whistle. Hand lets the belly move out. And on this breathing exercise, you can feel how that whistle, that exhale is like almost like a breeze going right through your body to release anything within you. Okay. So let's move on now to mindfulness. Excuse me for just a second. Let me find something here. Papers get out of order sometimes. Here we go. So Mindfulness practice provides us with the tools that are required to observe the true nature of our present moment reality. They help us to gain clarity, and that clarity puts anxiety into a new light. Embracing mindfulness promotes healthy management of anxiety in the following ways. Again, mindfulness connects us to the present moment. While our thoughts about the past or future can seem all too real at times, the more we practice being in the present moment, which is really all we have, the more we develop ways to let go of the weight of the past and avoid future fearful stories. Mindfulness promotes our rest and digest system. Mindfulness practice moves us out of fight or flight into rest and digest. The breathing exercises we just did are good examples of rest and digest. The rest and digest system is a part of our parasympathetic nervous system. It slows the heart and eases the mind, promoting our overall sense of well-being. Mindfulness can help retrain the brain, literally, that habitual thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, many of them linked to anxious, fearful, critical feelings, are incredibly strong because of neural pathways that fire nearly automatically based on the stories we've learned to accept as truth over the course of our lives. As we mindfully become in charge of our thoughts, we actually rewire the brain by forming new neural pathways. And in doing so, we harness thoughts and belief that support our well-being. Mindfulness helps us to regulate our emotional responses to stress. Research has actually shown that mindfulness practice helps to regulate emotions. And as we start to gain greater insight and have choice of our emotions, we lessen our propensity to become lost in anxious thoughts and feeling. Mindfulness heightens our awareness of the mind-body connection, promoting relaxation. By deepening our awareness of the physical body, we promote peace of mind, and we come to understand and experience just how intertwined mind and body really are. Now try this for a moment. Make a fist. Really hold that fist, just tighten that fist, tighten it, and then when you think you can't tighten it anymore, tighten it even more. Tighten it, tighten it, tighten it, tighten it, tighten it, and then let it go. Notice the experience. It's a clear experience of how releasing of that tension can feel to you. And finally, mindfulness can help shift our self-perception. Through mindfulness practice, we can begin to shift the ideas we hold about ourselves. It's been shown to increase positive self-esteem and encourages self-compassion. By observing and being with our inner experience, we learn greater self-compassion and we lessen the tensions experienced when challenging situations arise. But take a moment right now and be with yourself. Bring yourself into this present moment. Don't try and shift or change where you are. Try not to judge. There's a tall order for most of us. You know, this is not an exercise in perfection. Just watch as sensations and feelings come and go. And imagine that the thoughts that trouble you, the thoughts that come and go, that bother you, imagine them like clouds in the sky. And you know how it is with clouds in the sky. You can watch them like we did as children oftentimes. I love to watch clouds move through the sky as a child. They just move off. They go here, they go there. And you can imagine your thought process in that similar way. Does that thought just be a cloud and move it off into the sky? Guided imagery is another very good way to work with aspects of survivorship. We're not in a situation for me to guide you through this particular exercise, but I'm just going to read it to you for your reference. It's about calling up a safe space, creating a safe space for yourself that you can use at any time. So the instructions would be to sit or lie down in a comfortable position, close your eyes, and remember a place where you felt safe and relaxed. Don't worry if you don't have an image, a memory, or a thought is fine. Let yourself be in this place. Slow down your breathing and become aware of how you feel in this place. You may want to bring another person or a being or guide into your safe place to comfort you. It's up to you. It's your place. And after you do this, before you open your eyes, take a mental picture of your safe place so you can return there anytime you want. And then it can be often helpful to write down the story or draw the picture of your safe place, or both, so that you have this to refer to. Movement. You know, sometimes just getting up and moving around takes us to what's next. This can be standing up, stretching in the chair, walking, running, swimming, climbing a tree, jumping up and down. As the poem by Maya Stein reminds us, this is called work, what you will come to know eventually and simply as movement, as all the evidence you need to make your way. Working with fears. I'm going to give you just a few very simple tools on how to work with fear. I first want to say that fear is a very congruent emotion. Fear and anxiety, when you have been given a cancer diagnosis, you've been through an intense treatment, you're someone living with cancer, you're living with uncertainty. So it's very congruent to have fear. Don't judge your fear. But it's important not to have your fear bully you or give it too much power. So the first thing I suggest in working with fear is just to greet your fear with a neutral attitude, like, oh, fear. There you are. Hello. The second is tell your fear that it is welcome. Ask it to show you the lessons you are learning from it. What are you teaching me? Why are you here? This then goes into having a conversation with your fear, leaning into your fear, asking it what it's trying to tell you and what you're learning with your fear. However, if your fear tries to bully you, tell it in no uncertain terms to go away and leave you alone. Do not bully me, fear. Go away. One of the most beautiful ways to transform fear, next slide please. Gratitude, one of the most beautiful ways to transform our fear. By learning to face our fears of cancer, become open to new possibilities. Letting go of your fear is to simply be in the present moment with what opens up, is a place to recognize what you are grateful for. Gratitude does not have to be grand, and not only can be found in our joys, but also in our sorrows. Gratitude can soothe stories of fears by coming into the present moment and finding what you are grateful for. A gratitude practice asks, what am I grateful for today? The seasons of survivorship of our lives arise and pass. What now changes with the seasons? What next transforms into what next again and again as we move forward in our lives. And as the last lines of the poem by Maya Stein remind us, forget where you were. That story is no longer true. Level your gaze to the trail you're on, and even the dark won't stop you. So we have about 10 minutes left for comments or questions, and I see there's one. I really welcome anyone that might have something else they'd like to talk about. Let's see. So this is more of a personal question to me, which again, I would say to this person to email me and see if I can help with this question in that way, okay? Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if there's any questions at all, or maybe we, thoughts? Okay, well, I want to thank you for joining me today. I wish you well on your journey. And in whatever season that you are in, I wish you many, many seasons to come. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.